Okay, dodgy test rig altogether. So old Terps container with a bit of kero in it, using kerosene rather than petrol just because it's less likely to go boom. Hose around to a filter, to a tap so I can actually turn it on and off. Go into the fuel pump, out of there and across the back here to the chamber I made, into one connector on the bottom. This other one comes out and goes to the Turbo Smart regulator. So out of the regulator we've got one connector which just goes to this pressure gauge, so I've got some idea of fluctuations, although it's not reading zero, even nothing in it. And the other outlet is this one here, which goes through a tap, so I can restrict it right down to zero if I want to, or leave it wide open, and that just goes back to the tank. Now the regulator has a return line, so when it's pressure limiting, fuel returns down this line back to the tank. Funnily enough, seems to work quite well. Certainly having this in the plumbing has reduced the fluctuations to perfectly acceptable levels. Now this tank is just one I made using bits I had lying around. It is larger than I'd like, so I will make a smaller one just to see just how small I can go and still have acceptable fluctuations on the pressure gauge. One thing I have found, and it may be due to restriction in the flow down this line, down the return line, is that at full flow this pressure is 3 psi. Now it seems to be, it could be, well, I'm not sure exactly what. And if I close this off completely so that there's no fuel coming out of the regulator, no regulated fuel coming out of the regulator, it goes up to 5 or so psi, but still with no fluctuation, so that's quite good. Alright, now with it running, you can hear it's a noisy little sod, but you know, you're not going to hear it when you're riding. Pressure gauge is showing about 3 psi, so that's with this wide open, so it's quite a good amount of fluid being pumped around straight in back to the tank. Now as I close this off, the pressure goes up. Now it's not an instant response because it's having to pressurize this cylinder, so this cylinder will be filling up with pressure with fuel as the gas on top gets pressurized. So you can see it's up to about 4 psi. There is some fuel going down the return line, as you can see by this bubble here. You can close it right off. Fuel pressure goes up to 5-ish psi, and there is all the fuel going through the pump, and the regulator is now coming down this line. So possibly this increase is due to a restriction on this line. To that end, I have a lot bigger hose connected to try out and just see if it regulates a little bit better. Right, at the moment I've got a large hose on the outlet of the regulator, or one of the outlets. The other one just goes here to the gauge. I have a huge hose on the return line out of the bottom of the regulator, so there's no restriction there. And I've even removed the tap I had in the line, so there's absolutely no restriction between here and going back to the tank. And it's still got sort of 1.5 to 2 psi. So with essentially no restriction, it's still pumping. Well, there's still some back pressure somewhere in here, in the outlet here, causing pressure here. Not really a problem. However, if I put my finger on this to restrict it, right, to the point of even stopping it completely, now there's a maximum return out of the bottom, and the minimum pressure that this regulator can be set to, like that screw is just about only just touching inside, is 5 psi-ish on this gauge. So that's really the maximum. So what I need to do is find a way of reducing the pressure that this regulator will do. I need it to limit at no flow to about 4 fibres, like the absolute max that the carburetor will take without leaking through the float valve. And if I take my finger off and let it go, it takes a little while to drop down as the air pressure in the cylinder reduces. So it can only reduce at the rate the fuel can come out of this hose. No, this hose rather. This one from the fuel pump fills this up, and then it comes out here. You have to think that this flow rate would be enough for the bike when it's running, you'd hope.